So essentially this is a really interesting sort of town hall meeting, old-fashioned, where council makes themselves available and the village staff prepare to engage in dialogue with the community, to talk about the issues that the community sees, try to get a handle on new issues that they're bringing forward, also to communicate what it is that we're doing as a council, as a village. It's interesting, all of the things that get lost. A lot of times you hear on the street, council needs to get really tough with economic development and really work that thing. It's a good investment for us to say, let's let people know what we're doing. Let's let them know what we're working on.
And this is the second annual event. Last year's event was well attended, I understand. What kinds of things came out of last year that you were able to work on as a council this year?
So a couple big issues were burning, and I think that's why we had the great attendance. The great attendance, I think, was due to we had some issues with snow removal last year, and people wanted to see that changed, and that has been substantially changed. That input that we received has affected the way that we do business in Valemount, which I think is good. There were some good suggestions for people. Another piece was rocks on the Bigfoot Trail. Simple, clear answer. I wasn't ambiguous. We heard loud and clear that wasn't something that people thought was good, and so we made some changes.
So this year you're doing something a little bit different. You have community partners here. Can you talk about that a little bit?
One of the cop-outs that you get from politicians is saying, that's not my department, I don't know. So if somebody tonight wants to know about road crossings at the ministry, they belong to the Ministry of Transportation, but of course they affect the village deeply, and young mums in particular. I've heard them on Facebook saying, I don't feel safe crossing that highway, and yet we need to because the village office and the community market is there. What can we do? This gives them an opportunity not to sidestep that question, but have the Ministry of Transportation here. Also the regional district, I'm sure you have footage of all the people that are here, but the group for the Ministry of Environment regarding air and northern health, air quality, radon, it's emergency management. Lots of questions to say, what happened in Lac-Mégantic? Are we prepared if something happens? And it is a bit of a hedge. The answer is we have an emergency plan, but we're working on making it better and getting the things into play.
And as a council and as a staff, as a village staff, what do you take from this? What is the process once you've gone through this public meeting?
One of the powerful things is hearing people and having a conversation. I think one of the things that I'm proud of this village is we let our light shine. So one of the things that I feel we have a responsibility to do is to say, these are the things we're working on. We are working on them in the most efficient way that we think is possible, and we're bringing all of our resources to bear. These are the things that we hear are important, and here's what we've done. And I think it's important to have that conversation. It can't just be people in coffee shops. I mean, that part has to happen where people say, what are you doing for economic development? Do you really, or do you care about the citizens, and how does that manifest? I think that's important, but this is a part of the conversation, is to say, hey, we're here, we're working hard, this is where we're going, and also, time to face the music for those times that we fall, that we fail, or we fall down on providing the service that we need to. It's not as drastic as an election, but it has the same impact.
I'm Mike Yerkovich. I'm with Community Futures Fraser Fort George, and we are a small business resource center for our region.
Okay, so what are you doing here in Valemount today?
So we're just here to remind people of small business opportunities, or that maybe to take that leap of faith and become an entrepreneur, and that you have resource with us at Community Futures to help you out.
My name is Michael Higgins. I'm one of the regional managers from Emergency Management BC, based out of the Prince George office. And Emergency Management BC provides support to local governments on things emergency management, and coordinates provincial government response during emergency activations. So tonight I'm here to provide a little bit of public education and information in support of the Valemount Emergency Management Program, and basically to support the community and hopefully learn some best practices from the Community Conversations event.
We're just here today to represent air quality and bring awareness to the community about air quality.
So air quality as it relates specifically to Valemount?
General outdoor air quality and also outdoor air quality as it relates to Valemount. We are partnering with the Ministry of Environment, and they have some information on the data that's available for the airshed here, but a lot of the information applies throughout Northern Health.
I'm here on behalf of Fraser Basin Council and in partnership with the Northern Health Authority, and we're offering information about radon gas in the home, which is the second leading cause of lung cancer in Canada. And we're just offering information to homeowners about how to test their home and how to potentially mitigate radon in the home if it's an issue.
So can you give us a few quick things that people can be thinking about when they're, many people will not know anything about radon, I'm sure. So what can they do?
So radon is a colorless, odorless gas. It's impossible to tell if it's in your home unless you test for it. We recommend testing a home for using a long-term radon test kit, testing a home for a minimum of 3 months. So you place a radon detector for 3 months, and then you send it away to a lab and get your test result back. And then you compare that to, there's now a Canadian standard for radon in the home. So if you're above that level, then you want to make sure you take measures to reduce radon in the home.
But the idea is it is a conversation, and that's the whole point. So it's not like we only roust up the troops when things go terribly off the rails. It's like Valemount is in such a position, man. We've got work to do as a community. We got so much to do. We're in a little bit of a bubble right now where I think we're feeling things are going well, but the reality is where we were 6 years ago. We don't have a mill. We don't have industrial jobs. We have higher house prices than people can afford, and a lack of opportunity for young people here. So we need to get together as a community and brainstorm, know what each other are doing, right? And go forth.
Why is the community forest officer?
Well, we're just trying to communicate with the public, really. I'm new here, so I'm trying to get to know some of the local people and just kind of get the word out and answer questions and shake hands. And
So what's the function of the community forest office here? What is your purpose?
well, basically, we occupy the land base around Valemount, and we try to manage it in a way that is friendly to the village of Valemount and the people surrounding it. We try to be a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more interactive with things like this. Try to get people's opinions and viewpoints and try to manage that way. We harvest wood. We make our income on wood sales. We try to supply all the local manufacturers as best as we can. And the excess wood we send out of the valley for the top dollar and bringing money in to help support our whatever we do here.
delegates at the commission, and getting them to move the 6 years and then we're going to look to have permanent regulations.
I have sort of pitched this as a chance for people to complain. That's just an opportunity to get people out. It's my sales job because I think people like to hear that. But really, what the underlying piece is here is we need everybody on board.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second Community Conversations. It's so nice to see you all here. Attendance like this makes it worth all the work that it is putting one of these together. I hope you had a chance to attend the open house before the Community Conversations. We had some village tables with information, seeking input and appreciation for our volunteers. And we also had some really amazing tables from a number of our partner agencies. And so I'd like to introduce those folks who have made the effort to come from out of town to man the tables for that event. So we have Terry McKeon from Fraser Fort George. We have Tiffany Bonnet from the Fraser Basin Council. Barb Oak from Northern Health.
Can you guys stand up?
Michael Higgins from EMBC. Mike Yurkovic from Community Futures. Daisy Tam from Northern Health. Lana Miller from the Ministry of the Environment. And Craig Pryor from the Valemount Community Forest. They all deserve a round of applause in appreciation for their work and participation. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. We also want to thank Council for their commitment to this event. It's a scary thing to be unarmed and open in front of a crowd. And it's likely that all of the positive feedback from last year's event has helped their courage in sitting up there again tonight. So in the event you haven't met all of our council, we have Councillor Dallas Bullock, Councillor Christine Latimer, Mayor Andrew McCracken, Councillor Holly Blanchette, sorry, I think I'm doing something to a speaker, and Councillor Sandy Salt. Let's give them all a round of applause as well. And last but not least, let's recognize all the hard work that village staff has done in putting this event together. Yes. The success of this is due to their efforts, and I'd like to recognize Silvio Gislamberti, our Economic Development Officer, Braden Hutchins, our Corporate Officer, Lori McNee, our Director of Finance, Katie Fabris, our Local Government Intern, Jennifer Robinson, our Marketing Coordinator, and I think Carlina Shepard, Trevor Pelche, and Dean Schneider have gone home, but let's recognize them as well. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is to provide an update on village affairs. It's to give you all an opportunity to comment on the 5 strategic priorities that you would like to select for deeper discussion, and to give you an open forum in which to bring forward comments and questions to council. The agenda for tonight, we'll start with door prize draws because everyone wants to know who won the stuff on the table over there. So we'll ask Mayor McCracken to make that happen.
Okay, so we are just really pleased. We don't have a lot of time tonight, so you'll notice that there's sort of a feeling of urgency, but the idea is we're talking about all of the big issues, or there's an opportunity tonight to speak about all of the big issues that we've got going on. So we're going to try to get through this pretty quickly to get to the meat of the issue. So if you're feeling you're being hurried through, you are, because we're hoping to have an opportunity for dialogue. As well, you'll see as the night rolls on, I hope that you'll be satisfied with the format.
So after that, we're going to go through the meeting procedures, and then we're going to be looking for some input from the audience, and I'll describe that in a little more detail at that time. We'll have an update from Mayor and Council on some wins from the previous year. We'll have an overview of our strategic priorities and their status, and then we'll take comments and questions on the 5 strategic priorities that you've selected for deeper discussion. And finally, we'll end up with an open floor during which you have the opportunity to comment or question on any topic of your choice. And the package on your chairs has an evaluation form as well, and I'm going to remind you at the end to fill that out, but I'd like to also just mention it now because we really value those evaluation forms. It helps us to design the types of events that work for you. So we'd appreciate you taking the time to fill those out. So the public comment procedure, we're going to ask each speaker to limit their question or comment to 1 minute. You have up to 1 minute to do that. We've got a really tight agenda tonight. We'd like to give you a little more time than that, but that's going to fill up the 2 hours completely already. Toastmasters will be using their timing lights to ensure that the conversation stays on schedule, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Marion Farquharson for running those for us. And if you are uncomfortable speaking publicly, there is an opportunity on your response forms to fill in a question or comment that we can read out in the open forum section. That's the opportunity. Oh, sorry. It's the opportunity to ask further questions and comments on topics already presented. Written comments are also received at comments@valemount.ca. When you're speaking, we ask that you would use a microphone. We'll have staff going around with the microphone, ready to hand it to you if you are asking to speak. We ask that you provide your name and address, and please keep your questions and comments to 1 minute. You may speak a second time if there's opportunity and there aren't others ahead of you, or there aren't others who have not yet had a chance to speak. This is just basic courtesy, and we know that you are all familiar with, and I'm sure that you conduct yourselves this way anyway, but I'll just review it quickly. We all have a right to feel safe to express our point of view. Please show respect when someone else is speaking. Please don't dismiss comments of others based on how long they've lived in Valemount or any other criteria. We value and want to hear all points of view, and we'd like to stick to issues, not personalities. Now, if you want to look at the response form, and I need to look at my notes here, that's the blue form. There you go. Please take a moment to review the 14 strategic priorities, which are on the salmon-colored form, and select 5 you want to see an opportunity to comment on. If you can check those 5, and that's where you can also write any questions if you prefer not to verbalize those questions. Thank you, everybody. We're now going to move into the next part, which is where Council is going to give us an update on the wins from 2013. And we define a win as an achievement that is specific to this year. It is not in the strategic priorities, and it's not an operational or ongoing sort of thing that we do well. These are just unique events and opportunities that came up and we were able to capitalize on.
All right. So the first thing is I'm going to speak rather quickly on this piece. I'm going to begin with a program we participated with the Northern Development Initiative Trust. They helped us secure some talent to help out the village office for 6 months this year. So we had an intern, Katie Fabris, who has been working at the office, is trained in, has a background in planning, which is of great help. We have a lot of talent on staff, but planning is something particular. And you don't typically find that in small communities until you move into like a big community where you've got a whole regiment of planners. We do have help outside the village. I need to be quick with this. This has been a real boon, and the impact is we're going to be applying for the internship again for next year. We found it to be extraordinarily helpful, and the way it broke down was the Northern Development Initiative Trust pays for about 75% of the wage. So it's a real value. It's a way of getting a lot of work done. And it's interesting to have a floater on staff who, Marianne, are you timing me? Because I'll just go on.
No, you won't. No, you won't.
Hurry up, hurry up.
Anyways, it's been a real boon. I'll move on to the next one. so there's a new garbage truck and a garbage rate structure. We inherited an older garbage truck when the contractor went out of business. We needed to find a way to manage that service, and there was an opportunity, go big or go home. The idea was we could do a cost-effective job by getting a new truck. It has a mechanical arm. We reduce our exposure to worker compensation issues. There are heavy bins to be lifted. And it also, because we have several sizes of bins that can be used, it allows us to provide a little bit more of a user fee. You pay for what you get. So if you get a larger bin, you pay more. And this really had a rather radical effect on commercial businesses, is where it's more fair than it ever was. There's a real direct correlation between how much you pay and how much waste you create. The nice thing is it provides a built-in incentive for people to have less garbage, generate less garbage. My next piece is Kinbasket Reservoir Impacts and Opportunities Study. There is some ink on this you have this purple community conversation wins. I'll add a couple things that aren't there. It was an $18,000 study. But I want to say, I used to be that guy that said, let's not do studies. But I want you to know, the regional district, our regional district receives payments in lieu of taxes from BC Hydro. That money goes into a type of fund that's used for economic development widely throughout the whole regional district, even though it's a very small portion of the valley that is affected directly by the dam. This was an opportunity to use that funding locally to do something worthwhile, which was to look at the impacts of the reservoir on the local people here. The really nice piece about this is that it was done by two local people who develop local knowledge. So, if you have doubts about the utility of a study, so do I. But the win that we get this is we're not paying somebody from Prince George to get smarter and stuff their CV. We get local people who are now really knowledgeable about the reservoir, its issues, and people who can have a powerful impact in the renegotiation of the Columbia River Treaty, for example. So the two guys that worked on it are, I think they're here actually, is Owen Torgerson and Jared Smith. And I just want to thank them for their for stepping up. They're going to be a part of the community long term, and now we have that knowledge here. And you may notice they're both under 30, so rock and roll. I'll turn the mic over to Christine.
I'm not going to be as long as him, just so you guys know. Yay! I'm going to talk about Discover Valemount, which is a partnership between VCTV and Tourism Valemount. Get out of the room.
Getting into her minutes.
So VCTV approached Tourism Valemount about doing some episodes on showcasing Valemount. And so with Tourism Valemount funding it and VCT providing in-kind contribution, great. They completed 2 episodes, which can be seen on YouTube. And I'm sure that all of you have seen it. If you haven't, please go and have a look at it with our local movie stars that are in it. The plan is to complete some winter episodes, which I'm not sure when they're starting exactly, but definitely have a look at them. And I think it's a great thing to maybe capture an audience across Canada now that everything is being shown on regular television. So that's what I have to talk about with Discover Valemount. Well, go and watch it. And then you'll know. So that's what I have to talk about with Discover Valemount. The Cranberry Marsh Boardwalk, Don Beeson Logging was hired in January of 2013 to work on the boardwalk. And again, Tourism Valemount is funding this initiative. The phase 1 was completed in March, and the plan is to complete the whole loop by 2016. So Tourism Valemount has allocated 70% of the funds to go towards this project, and Tourism Valemount was also told that the village would also apply for any grants that might be available to hopefully finish it sooner. So once it's completed, again, another attraction for our little village. And I'm done.
I'm going to talk about our Drinking Water Week. On May 25th, we celebrated Drinking Water Week in the village. I was really inspired this year by our beautiful water treatment plant, and we decided to promote the week by opening the doors to the public. We applied for and we received a $1,000 grant from the BC Water and Wastewater Association, which we used to hold a barbecue and advertise the event. We gave tours to 80 residents who gave us great feedback, and hopefully we gave them a better understanding of the village's water system. Now I'm going to talk about our pre-feasibility study for an upstream water intake, and it's definitely going to take me more than 1 minute because it's kind of a pitch. So part of our water system that we are closely looking at is our water intake. During last year's emergency on Swift Creek, we realized the vulnerability of the pump system we use that's beside the creek. Currently, water is pumped uphill to be treated. It takes constant electricity and maintenance of the pumps and other components. If we were to lose our pump house in a similar flood event, we'd be out of water and we would have no fire suppression capabilities. And so we started to undergo a pre-feasibility study, which has had no impact on the budget, to research an upstream gravity-fed water intake. It would eliminate pumps, it would reduce electricity usage in a big way, it would secure our water and fire suppression, and it would also eliminate any harmful effects on the weir on the salmon spawning habitat. The really neat part of this study, which we just received a draft of about 3 days ago, is a compensation piece from the Castle Mountain Hydro. They're willing to give some sizable dollars to the project as an offset to their hydro project. But honestly, it's really not a cheap endeavor to change our current system, but there's no argument to say that it would have a long-term value. I look forward to seeing a finished study and sharing it with everybody. And that's all I'm talking about.
And I get 4 minutes. Okay. Pardon? Yeah. So the Advisory Planning Commission is the village council created the APC to provide advice to council on land use, community planning, proposed permits, and potential bylaws. 6 local individuals have been put on that council. The Advisory Planning Commission allows council to be proactive on various issues by allowing council to seek feedback from citizens before the issues actually come to council. We've met 3 times. It's Tuesday, the 3rd Tuesday of each month at Village Council at 7 o'clock. We like to see the public there have their input. The upcoming issues are going to be short-term vacation rentals and medical marijuana. Don't want to miss that one. The next was the geocaching event and our summer festival this year. It was the first time we've ever done this. It was very successful. We had 27 people come, and 17 of them were from out of town. We had people come from the UK. Now, we had a big string of volunteers, Luke and Linda Hedberg, Paul Johnson. Jennifer Robinson was instrumental in putting this whole thing together and running with it. A huge kudos to her. We couldn't have done it without her. The cost of the event was just over $5,700. Most of the funding came from Tourism Valemount through the resort municipality tax, so no taxpayer money. Now, we've put out 50 caches. If we want to have an event next year, we can. There are lots of different options. I talked to Paul Johnson today. There's things like puzzle caches, multiple search, there's historic sites, there's mystery caches. So if we want to do the event again, we can. It was a great success. We've had a lot of feedback, all positive, so we might want to do that. The next one was the Small Town Love, which Katie was instrumental in. It was a great success. It's a Northern Development pilot project called Love Valemount. It was intended for local entrepreneurs who contribute to the community and their own business in Valemount. There's 34 businesses that participated. The participants paid $50. And like I said, it was a pilot project, so the next group will probably be in the winter months, starting in January. So if you're interested, that'll be the time to go. The website is lovevalemount.com. That's it for that. And the last one here is partnering for organizations applying for grants. And this is a great opportunity. If you're a nonprofit and you need some help, the village is here to help. I myself has used it on our Walk Around the World program. The village is approached by a number of organizations to help them secure funding as their organizations do not qualify and they need to be sponsored. We've got the Valemount Learning Center is accessing it. They're doing a feasibility study for the private nonprofit Post-Secondary Career Training Institute project, and they're funded by Van City. Like I said before, the Walk Around the World, they're helping us there, and our funding is from Northern Health. The Swift Creek Watershed Society is accessing this. The site assessment and plans for Swift Creek Salmon Enhancement and Monitoring and Education Outreach Project, good grief. And they're all funded by Kinder Morgan, federal government, and CBT. And Millennia Trends Consulting, which is Give Youth a Voice by Dorothy. This is Valemount Community Directed Youth Funds. This is a great program. They provide youth activities for youth aged 12 to 19 in the area of recreation, social, and expressive art and drama, and they're funded by CBT. So they work as partners. The village administers the funds for these projects. There is no direct cost for admin, but it is staff time, and I know that Lori does a lot of work for us, and it's greatly appreciated. And the village sees this as being a win as it allows organizations to provide additional services and benefits to all the community. So we all win in that. And you're up.
Okay, no one told me there was a dress code tonight, so I'm cheerful blue, not dreary black. So I have a few topics I'm going to talk about. The first one is about that we hosted two Justice Institute of British Columbia emergency management courses. Valemount's emergency response plan and emergency response training were very out of date. So to help develop the skills and knowledge to update the emergency response plan, train staff in emergency response, as well as offer training to partner agencies, Valemount hosted these two Justice Institute of BC emergency management courses. The existing emergency response plan did not serve us well in 2012 with our flooding. Our contact lists were out of date. There was no provision to work with other response agencies. Our process was unclear, roles were unclear, and the plan was ineffective in maximizing the assistance of Emergency Management BC. So we created a solution which was to successfully host two Justice Institute BC courses in June of 2013. They provided a pre-course of a core emergency management training, and then we had a basic training in Emergency Operations Center operations and basic training in emergency management exercise design. This assisted us in developing a multi-agency emergency plan committee, and we began preparations and are going to be continuing preparations for our mock disaster event. And this has also helped us facilitate the delivery of community support to Valemount by Emergency Management BC, and I'd like to thank Michael Higgins for all his assistance. Thank you very much, Michael. Status of our solution is that our emergency committee is assembled with representatives from many other agencies, from the fire department, the RCMP, ambulance, Northern Health, the fire attack base, CN, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Lakes District Management. Our plan is under review and a new draft is in progress. And a mock disaster event planning will occur once our new emergency response plan has been created. So watch out for that in the coming year. The next topic I have is the Bigfoot Trail under Highway 5, where the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure completed the cleanup, widening and improving of the Highway 5 underpass by Swift Creek. The Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure undertakes smaller projects on a regular regional annual basis, and in 2012, Council submitted a request for the improvements of the Highway 5 underpass. The MOTI removed some existing materials, rock, sand, and soil in the underpass area and upgraded the existing passage to an adequate trail. All costs were carried by the MOTI, and this upgrade guarantees a safe passage for pedestrians under Highway 5. Eventually, it will completely connect to the Bigfoot Trail. Underpass improvements are complete. The trail needs to be completed in front of Ramada, and the trail also needs signage and markings along Cranberry Lake Road from the Visitor Information Center to Swift Creek. Got it. And my last topic is the 68th Annual General Meeting of the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association, which I'm very proud to be a part of having that be awarded to Valemount. Valemount will host the 68th Annual General Meeting of the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association from May 15th to May 17th next year. 70 to 90 members are expected to participate, and they also, most of them, or a lot of them, bring partners. Meetings will be held in the community hall, council chambers, the classroom in the building next door, and at the Valemount Best Western. And Tourism Valemount is the major local sponsor for that event. We will be securing other sponsors as well, and none of the taxpayers will pay for this event is the initial and final goal. There should be no taxpayer dollars to pay for that. The Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association is a four-province nonprofit association established in 1947 to promote the development, maintenance, and use of the Yellowhead Corridor as vital to Canada's national transportation system and national unity. The association is engaged in two major activities: advocacy for the development, maintenance, and enhancement of Yellowhead Highway, and promotion of its benefits and assets to industry, tourists, governments, and communities. In January 2013, the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association called for bids to host the 68th AGM. Valemount won. We were very excited. And I've already said that $5,000 is being sponsored by Tourism Valemount out of their hotel room tax fund. And this is a really great chance to promote Valemount and all of its projects. We have confirmed keynote speakers already. They will have an opportunity to present to delegates, mayors, councillors from communities across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC that go along the Highway 16 and Highway 5 corridors. An organizing committee was formed in September of this year. We have partnerships with McBride, the Regional District, Blue River, First Nation, and Jasper. There has been letters of invitations have been sent out to various ministers, to our Premier, keynote speakers, Alberto Alberti, Borealis Geothermal, and TELUS. And we're really looking forward to involving all of the business community and all of the citizens, making sure to welcome these delegates to Valemount. And that's it for me. I went over.
Am I on? I'm on. So thank you, Council, for that update on those wins. We're now going to move to the strategic plan. And the reason we chose this format for this year's community conversation was to deepen the public's understanding of what Council has identified as important goals to achieve. And so just focusing on that strategic plan helps us to build that understanding. So there's two pieces in the strategic plan. One focuses on operational goals. So those are more task focused. Those are specific jobs that we need to have accomplished. And the second portion is the strategic goals. And those are more bigger overarching goals. So I can't remember what color Katie was trying to create a rainbow here. I think purple, green is wins. Green is operational priorities. All right. So we're going to move to the operational priorities and let Council speak about those. But before we do, I'm just going to mention, what did I do with it? There it is. We've identified the 5 strategic priorities that you would like to speak about, and they are exploring geothermal opportunities, planning for VGD impacts and opportunities, updating the emergency plan, our bylaw enforcement strategy, and our infrastructure strategy. So when Council speaks about their operational priorities, I'm going to not interrupt and let them move seamlessly from there right into their updates on strategic priorities, but I'll ask them to remember those 5 to hold aside for the last so that we can use those in the public piece. So there you go.
Okay, so I'm going to speak about the sign bylaw implementation. I've been on this committee for 4 years, so it's been a long process, and I think I'm the only person left on the committee that originally was on it. So needless to say, over the years and adding different people from different organizations has been a little bit of a challenge. So what it all started out with or about was the fact that we have signs that are dilapidated or businesses that have closed or businesses that may have 6, 7, 8 signs within the village and on the highway and billboards. And so we noticed that there was a big inconsistency with the signs within the village. And then homemade signs and professional signs and little signs and big signs and, going on the highway at 65 miles an hour and you can't read the sign because it's too little. And so there's a whole bunch of things that we have to consider in this implementation. So after 4 years, we definitely have to update a lot of things. We have to educate everybody about a lot of things. We have to remove outdated signs or signs where there's businesses no longer in business. And we have to find a way to address the infractions. So this bylaw, when we first did it about 2.5 years ago, or first started working on it, it went out to the Chamber of Commerce members to look it over and see if there was anything that maybe was missed or that was a little too harsh. And the comments were not given to the Chamber of Commerce. They were sent right back to the village office. And then when we met again, we addressed the issues from the community and then changed everything all over again. So once again, we're at a standstill almost, but we've got 4 people on the committee, and we're going to hope that we're going to have something to share within the next 2 or 3 months. It's just, we just want to make sure before we unveil it that it's going to make sure that it covers all of the questions that have been asked within the community. So that's where we're sitting with the sign bylaw implementation. My next thing I want to talk about is the upgrades to the village sign. That's the log work as soon as we come into the village of Valemount. And as we all noticed, up until it was refinished in September, it was kind of pretty unsightly. It was erected in January of 2009, and it wasn't really completed. A lot of the sign wasn't completed as per the contractor that was doing it. So in September of 2013, John Crowley Contracting was awarded the bid to complete and upgrade the sign. He sanded it, restained it. He finished the bases with the natural stone. He put shield caps, copper shield caps, to the tops of the structure. And then the plan in the future is to hopefully add some lighting and some flag poles. So we have to admit that it definitely looks 1,000 times better than what it did. And that's all I need to talk about right now.
Okay, one of our operational priorities is to monitor the effectiveness of the year-round operation of the Visitor Information Center. As we've seen in a letter in the newspaper last week, praise to the great staff for helping stranded visitors in our community due to highway closures wouldn't have happened if the center had closed in the fall. Numbers, of course, are down at this time of year, but it will take more than 1 year to really gauge the success of the year-round operation. Once people on their journeys north and south remember they can always stop in Valemount along their way. So this is our trial year. The visitor center, we must remember, is both an asset to visitors and residents for all the local products brought in, as well as promoting businesses in the community, events and activities around our beautiful town. It has proven the retention of folks who stop to ask what we have to offer. Our objectives of the year-round operations is to attract more visitors, enrich their experience by providing a service that directs them to all our local activities, events, and services. And the village will continue to work with the province on appropriately funding the centre. And I'll talk about the completion of the Bigfoot Trail. Well, the loop is done. We've almost beat this one to death talking about it, but it's a huge accomplishment. The benches have been installed, the trees are planted, and the extension underneath Highway 5 has been added. Most of the signs are installed, and we're going to partner with the Historical Society to develop interpretive signs still to come. We held an opening ceremony on September 7th, and MLA Shirley Bond attended. We've all seen the excellent usage and seem to have gotten past the whole rock debacle to truly appreciate the addition to the community. Yep.
About the exciting life of bylaws. So we've reviewed the fees and charges bylaw, the water bylaw, thank you. Now the water bylaw is pending communication with CBT regarding water meters, so calm. The business license bylaw and the traffic bylaw. So Tuesday night, we did first and second reading to the water and sewer. The business bylaw will be addressed in 2014. Now the APC is working on some of those issues already. Home-based business we did the other day. Street vendors were done previously. And the traffic bylaw will be addressed in 2014. And the community use agreement, oh geez. Okay, we've got another draft on the table. We're fine-tuning it. We had somebody from the school district step down. They retired. So we're letting the new guy get sort of on track and find out all about us and what we want and why we want it. So we've had a few setbacks, but we're going to keep trying. The community use agreement, as you know, is something that the village has to administer the agreement, and it's, if you want to have something at the school, you have to work through the school district and the village to make it happen. So for anybody that goes to volleyball, that does badminton on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, when anybody who attended the craft fair at the school, all those things, when you go to the theater, all those things fall under that community use agreement. And it's tough, because everybody wants different things and everybody's only allowed to have certain things, but we're going to keep trying. That's it.
I get to talk about the exciting world of policies. And one of our operational priorities is to continue reviewing village policies. It's an ongoing process. Legislation changes, requirements change, village needs change, so it's an ongoing and never-ending story with policies. But we've done a lot of work this year, and we've been triaging the policies most in need of update. We've accomplished some particularly effective updates, including a policy that is required by the Auditor General for municipalities, and that's our purchasing policy. And the other policies we've updated in 2013 include snow removal, alcohol and drug use, rental of village facilities, bereavement leave, training, annual holiday, leaves of absence, and again, like I said, the purchasing was a very big legislated one as well. Another one of our operational priorities from the strategic plan included completing the mapping upgrade. The old mapping system the village had relied on printouts, which were basically out of date as soon as they were printed. It also didn't allow for layering mapping, which is able to layer the different infrastructure so you can be viewing all of those simultaneously. And it didn't allow for local updating as well. So the project is now complete. Staff have enhanced the basic information by adding property information details as well. The process of updating information is ongoing. Should be publishable to an electronic format this coming spring of 2014. And also our staff now are able to access it electronically from village computers and have that have the compatible software, whereas before we used to have to get printouts from our engineers. So that's been a big, big step for Valemount, the upgraded mapping. That's it for me.
Okay, me again. That's great. So we're giving you a lot of information. I hope you're finding it useful, and it's stuff that we're working on. We're going to move into, I think, the higher level. So that was some operational stuff. Now we're moving into our strategic priorities. The first one is development of a strategy for effective communications. We're liaising with an outside organization, the Northern Development Initiative Trust, to draft a communications plan. And the idea is to effectively communicate with, in-house and out-of-house and with the public. It's in the draft stage and it's under review. One of the things that we took on was replacing our paper agendas with we use iPads now, which I have to say saves a tremendous amount of paper. I still have the paper stacked up on at my home desk from the beginning part, and I mean it is criminal the amount of paper that we go through. And as you can see tonight, you've kind of got a hand in it, when you're like looking at this sheet and filling out the form, and it's kind of, if you're interested in council, if you like that, I mean, put your name in the ring next time. It's because we get a lot of dealing with paper. The effective communications is we're working really hard on a website update. There is so much good work that can be done through the website, and we're making a real concerted effort to have that. As part of our going to the iPad, there was sort of they had a deal that they develop a website with us that sort of adds in the bylaws that we're working on, the public awareness notice, like letting people know that, hey, we're doing this bylaw that may affect you. And the idea is they wanted to give us a website out of the box, but staff was like, no, we're gonna buy your software, we're gonna get the website that you build, but you're gonna build it right. So I'm really glad to see that level of granular stuff saying we don't just want a website, it has to work right. It's gonna take a while, but it'll be great. We are assessing the need for an airshed management plan. There's a lot of people in Valemount who are deeply affected by our air quality, specifically in the wintertime. From wood burning, we suspect potentially dust from the Kinbasket Reservoir when water levels are low. We are looking up to team up with the good people that you see here today, Northern Health, Ministry of the Environment, Regional District, and we are beginning that. If you're interested at all in that committee, we need bodies on it. Specifically, if you don't sit on any committee right now, I nominate you right now. Get on there. It is important, it's been an issue for a long time, and I can totally see why the village hasn't dealt with it, but we need to juggle more balls because for seniors and for people, there are lots of people who aren't living in this town or in this valley because of the quality of the air. So it's something I think we really need to address. And we have determined that we need to address, sorry, not just me. There's other folks too. And of course, it's mostly done with a lot of great help from staff as well. We have, this is a tough one. I'm just gonna read it right off the page. We have developed integrated community sustainability plan, and we're rolling out the implementation. It's a long-term plan that says where we're going, and I think it's, not only is it required for us to apply for infrastructure grants, because they don't want to see you go and say, well, we're going to upgrade the water system and not have a plan of how these grants all tie together. Are they just throwing money away, or is there some sort of plan of action here? I think it's critical. I think, in my mind, I think that I don't want to take away from the ICSP group, but I think as a community, I think our ICSP is actually the zeitgeist of Valemount. It's like, let's plan to be sustainable, let's plan to be here for a long time, let's treat the environment well, but let's have an economy, let's grow together as a community in health. Oh, I'm getting the sign from Marion. I'm going to pass it along. Those are my three. Yeah, I'm out.
Okay, it's me again. I'm going to talk about the strategy for effective committees of council. And that may sound like it's all confusing and everything, but basically what it is I'm on a bazillion committees and boards, and there's nothing worse than the other 12 people that are on the board and 8 decide that, they're going to go curling today instead of coming to the meeting that everybody's put a lot of planning into. So the reason behind this was to create a manual and make everything very clear about what you're getting yourself into when you decide that you're going to be part of a committee and be part of making a change for whatever committee that you're a part of. It's like being on a team. Everybody's got to play the game. So this manual was created, and we're all asked to read it. And if we don't understand what it's talking about, then to ask questions, but to sign it and really put your name in blood and say, you know what, I'm committed to show up to these meetings and to make a difference on this committee that I'm on. And so it's just been rolled out, and I really believe after me being here for 12 years, and it's not all about me, it's all about all of us. We're all volunteers, but it's finally out in the open about what it means to be a part of a committee. So I'm very passionate about it and really happy that it finally came out. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the OCP and zoning bylaw update. And typically that should be updated, every 5 to 10 years. Ours in the village was updated in 2006. So updating ours is going to allow our community to take into account any change such as large developments, BGD, medical marijuana operations, short-term vacation rentals, and any best practices that come across our desks, never mind the staff's desks within the village. So currently staff's developing a multi-year work plan to update the OCP and the zoning bylaw. So we're hoping to look at that at the beginning of the new year and move that forward. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is First Nations relationships. And on October 23rd and 24th, Council met with Mayor and Council here met with Chief and their council of the Simpcw First Nation. And it was the first time ever that the two councils had ever met. And honestly, it was a real eye-opener. It was we have so many similarities, and to partner with the Simpcw First Nation and to move forward, hopefully partnering with economic development and community organized, functions and events. I mean, we're looking at, going there and them coming here for different events. And it was really a strong couple of days that we spent together, and just to see how they embrace their community and what we can learn from them and maybe what they can learn from us. So learning more about their culture and their heritage and was really enlightening for me, and I think for us as a council. So we're really looking forward to spending more time with them. We do have a Simpcw First Nations flag now hanging in the council chambers, and hopefully in the summer we're planning on doing a raising of the flag as soon as we get a flagpole. And that's all I have to say.
Oh, mine are very short. But I wanted to say, when every year we get together as a council to have a day of hashing out our strategic priorities for the year coming, and it's an exciting time. It's really tough to figure out what it is we want to prioritize ourselves on and what we want to focus on for the year coming, and just to encourage the public and the people that live here to be in touch with us to tell us what's important to you that you'd like to see your council focus on. So our strategic priority number 5 was to develop a comprehensive human resource strategy. We recognized that a review of the HR structure for the village was appropriate. Most of the policies were out of date, and we did not have many policies that were appropriate to our current reality. So a review of job descriptions had been directed by council, as well as the implementation of pay ranges. Benchmarking and best practices will be incorporated into this strategy. It's dynamic. It's still in the process. The project will continue next year, but the personnel decisions are, of course, confidential. And strategic priority number 6. Ooh, it's really hard to go fast with this one. It's to develop a comprehensive infrastructure strategy. There's a big need to develop a maintenance and replacement plan for.
My turn.
It's Marion.
So our strategic priority number 9 was developing a wildfire protection prevention implementation framework. In November 2012, Council approved the Village of Valemount Wildfire Protection and Prevention Plan. We had a new plan done. The one prior was back in, I think, 2005 or 2006. The framework is a tool for assessing, prioritizing, and delegating responsibility to the numerous recommended tasks outlined in that plan. It's very comprehensive. Specifically, it contained over 50 recommended action items. In such a big plan, though, assessing, prioritizing, and delegating those action items was challenging. So the Wildfire Protection and Prevention Committee assessed the value of the recommended action items. They prioritized these action items and delegated these action items to respective organizations. So some items were delegated to the village, some were delegated to the Robson Valley Fire Zone, some were delegated to the fire department. And Council approved this implementation framework this spring. The newly created Emergency Planning Committee will continue to provide oversight of the Wildfire Protection Prevention Implementation Framework because the Wildfire Protection Prevention Committee basically had been dissolved and rolled into the new Emergency Planning Committee. So there's a lot of members from that former committee now on the Emergency Planning Committee. And that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so council, we recognize the need to develop a plan around solid waste. We did manage for those, amazingly, with the rollout of the new garbage truck. One of the things that happens for people who create less waste and can get away with a 35-gallon garbage bin, your fee for that will actually go down this year. But that's not the trend. That is not the trend. And the background to that is landfills that where we've been dumping all of our stuff for all of this time have to be decommissioned at some point, and it's insanely expensive. And as a regional district, they are mandated by law to put away the funds to decommission these things. There's no getting around it. If we don't do it, we're breaking the law. As a village, that means in the future, we will come to the crunch on this. So we need to find a way to make sure that things that we can do, like reducing the amount that we're bringing to the dump by implementing composting and trying to see a way through to doing recycling, even though we're so far away, are two ways that we can have a real impact on the amount of garbage that we haul. If we can reduce the amount of, say, compostables and recyclables, we can reduce the number of, we currently are charged from the regional district by tipping fees, the number of loaded trucks that we bring to the regional district. Some of this stuff is it's great to be proactive and find wins, and I think in a lot of ways staff have. I just want to let everybody know with solid waste, there's no win. It's just how much do we suffer because of the barriers that are there. But I think everybody in Valemount will be really delighted to see that ultimately, due to the province's initiative, they're sort of changing the way things are with recycling, where people who create the garbage that we throw away actually take responsibility for the materials that they throw, and they charge a fee at the beginning, as opposed to saying to the people who've done it. It's a classic case of downloading. Is you have these enormous cardboard boxes and everything for all your garbage, and it's just it's to their interest to make it as exciting and huge a package as possible. And then what happens to it afterwards? It just goes out to the local dump, and we pay for their mistakes. So what it is now is the bigger their package or whatever, the more that they pay in order. There's an incentive there to use less. But it's one of the ones where I wouldn't want to give anybody there was a bit of a blip this year because we have an option for people to bring less 35-gallon garbage bins, but that's really not the long term. It's not that we're going to get more and more efficient and your garbage is going to cost less and less, because there's just this amount of work that needs to be done to the existing landfills and then trucking of our garbage to Prince George, ultimately.
Okay, now we're up to the 5 items that you'd like the opportunity to comment on. And sorry for that bit of confusion there, but when we never know which items are going to be pulled out, we often have to do a bit of juggling on the order, and it's makes for an interesting time. So the first item that you identified as important to talk about is exploring geothermal opportunities. So we'll have a councillor provide the summary information on that priority, just like before, but when they're done, we'll give you the chance to provide a minute of comment on that topic. And we'll be coming around with a mic. If you just put up your hand that you want to say something, we'll give you that mic in so that you have that opportunity. Thanks.
This is a really interesting one because there is no geothermal power currently produced in Canada that goes onto the grid in the way that's proposed here in Valemount. And I have to say that our council and staff have been extremely proactive and flexible in terms of trying to find ways. The idea is, you know, if we want to improve policies and procedures, if we want to investigate how to make the garbage service more effective, we know how to do that because we're engaged in those activities right now. But we're not a player, and we've been actively engaged in recognizing that there's no geothermal power produced within BC Hydro. It was aware. The previous council became aware, and then we became aware too that this really requires us to use our political will and heft and our connections with other agencies to make this thing go. Because BC Hydro, you may have noticed, is a hard dinosaur to make change path. But I think it's up to us. The reason we're so interested in geothermal very quickly is because associated with the geothermal power, apart from the benefits like inherently of having a year-round power generation at this end of the line that would basically guarantee in our minds power all year round, except in the event of a distribution outage, like a massive ice storm or something like that, we would be good. In the case of 2003, when you had the massive fire in Barrier, we would be good. We would continue to have power. It's really important. I mean, it's important from that power security thing. But moreover, Valemount doesn't have natural gas, for example. If you take a look at why Valemount doesn't have an industry here, you can talk about a number of things. One of the reasons we don't have big industries, we don't have access to cheap power. We have very expensive power. That's what you get when you come to Valemount. So you try to talk somebody into coming here to do manufacturing. Not that that's not being done. It is. We're having those conversations. But the problem is that you need to use propane or electricity or other stuff that are really up here. What happens with geothermal is that there's a waste stream. The waste stream is hot coolant. Basically, the coolant goes into the earth. It gets close to very hot steam in the earth. That coolant comes up and it flashes a turbine. But if you know thermodynamics at all or sort of understand, I mean, I don't know, is anybody old enough? Jim Stewart would understand steam engines. Sorry, that was awful. Paul Fretz, maybe I will give us a refresher on. Okay, so but the idea is the water that comes out of that, it's not steam anymore. Sorry, it's not steam anymore, but it's still very hot, and it's kind of like having natural gas or a heat source. And we think that that's an opportunity to get things that create jobs, greenhouse, mushroom farm, those things that require heat cheaply. That we can do down the lake. There's lots of constraints, but that's why we're interested in this endeavor so much. One, because it's green, it's great for the planet. Two, because it gives us the opportunity to start an industry here in Valemount. So we're open for questions.
Owen Torgerson, 911 Elm Street. One of the major advantages that we have going into geothermal exploration is the negotiations and the re-signing of the Columbia River Treaty. Can you give a bit of a background on where we are, maybe a bit of an update on where we are in those treaty negotiations and how that can play a role?
Okay, so does everybody know where Kinbasket Reservoir is? And do you know why there's a reservoir there? It's because we generate about half the province's power with that reservoir. It's the working reservoir in the Columbia system. Valemount's right on the back end of it. We're the closest community to the reservoir. Out of all of the communities in the Columbia Basin is where this system goes. The water from the Kinbasket ultimately goes. And when it passes through Mica Dam, we have had the least benefit from power construction, from operations of hydro dams, from built infrastructure, from the sort of magnitude that gets when you have a community that has those things, and generally you have a population there. Valemount, in short, has been deeply affected by the Columbia River Treaty, and we're helping the province generate millions and millions of dollars per year. And the reason there's a lake in the winter and there's not one in the spring is because that water is working. It's generating power. So with the re-signing of the Columbia River Treaty, we've had some people from the province come and say, let's talk about what your concerns are in the treaty. And we're like, everything, you know? And what the province has told us, very briefly, just to wrap it up, is Kathy Eichenberger, one of the people who is presenting a report to Cabinet, has said that we need to recognize those communities that have been deeply affected by this but have not had the benefit of construction, of direct job impacts, of the maintenance, and who do not have the benefit, many other communities have the benefit of a recreational lake year-round. I have to tell you, I am amazed to hear that from the province. So that's a little bit of a win there, is Owen was in the room, and a few other people were in the room when the province said, we recognize that you guys have been affected in a deep way, and maybe the province needs to do something. And that's where we take geothermal and say, that's what you need to do. Very briefly.
Paul Fretz from Tijon. It's a sexy project. I would also like to see some emphasis done on the grid, to harden that grid, so that no matter whether we're generating power or not, that it's accessible.
Well, sorry, I don't understand. Harden the grid?
So that the grid keeps up whether we're generating power or not, that everyone has access. But if we are generating cheap power, it would be nice to be able to sell it as well. So there's no point in generating power that doesn't go anywhere.
Okay, yeah. So let's create that generation and connect it up to the grid, and create the grid, make sure that the grid is on always.
I'd like to see the grid connect all the way to Prince George.
Yeah.
So that there's two ends. If one part of the grid...
We can talk about that offline afterwards, because one thing that we need to do as politicians would like to run with that is a giant waste of time. And we can talk about why that is. Because it costs $400 million, and you can build a geothermal plant for 55 and get let's be frank, make politicians look really good. Not local ones, provincial ones, right?
Thank you. Sorry to rush you through this. We do have a very, very tight agenda, and we're already significantly behind time. So, His Worship is apologizing. The next topic identified is planning for the Valemount Glacier skiing destinations proposal.
What do you guys want to know about this? Right now, the proponent, well, that's a very good, yeah, that's a very good question. No, it's, right now, the proponent, Alberto Alberti, is working on the master development agreement. You guys probably understand that one of the remarkable things about the Valemount Glacier destinations is that it was funded up to the end of the master development agreement from the get-go. So they found somebody, they flew them around in a helicopter, and that person said, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk on this, I'm willing to spend the money to create the study. So unlike previous projects, we're able to get through the feasibility to the master development agreement to see where we go. What the thing is with the master development agreement is until you have that, and until that's approved, it would be like whether you have, imagine having plans for a house, and then people come and ask you and say, are you going to be able to build that house? But the thing is, the house is a tricky thing, and you haven't got approval for that house yet. So we go through the master development agreement process, and the province looks at that plan and says, does that plan make sense for the province? Does it make sense for First Nations, who are partners in the project? Does it make sense for the village and other stakeholders and the trappers who are affected and everybody else? And at that point, that project, that's the going concern. But I think what's really interesting, and you've probably heard me say this a number of times, I'm keeping it brief so you guys have time to speak. So if you want to hear me finish my sentence, ask me to finish my sentence.
Consultation in early January with Roberto Roberti.
Okay.
No, my only question really, Michael Lewis, 1275 4th Avenue. My question relates to the discussion of extending the boundary and the process of information flow with that to the village, and if it is, you know, if there's a presentation to be made and like pros and cons village discussion about it, excluding everybody else, because we are stakeholders, but that discussion of extending it as a municipality versus as a boundary extension, so forth, all has impacts on what the village reaps from it, especially if it's considered an enclosed boundary. So,
for sure. I've presented on this a number of times. The last time was at UBCM when we presented to the Minister of Community and a number of others, the Premier as well. And we said, look, we've got this interesting project. It's potentially $750 million, you know, close to $1 billion investment. Maybe you want to pay attention to this because we're a little village, but we need to make sure we understand what the impacts of the community are. We've spoken to 5 other communities that have ski resorts. They're a little different than us because they had small ski resorts in advance. And when they had the opportunity to expand or go commercial with their ski resorts, they plunged into it headlong. And many of us, most of us here were at a presentation. It was amazing to see the things that, when we said, would you do anything differently? It was like a laundry list like this. And we were kind of thinking, it's like, oh my God, why do we want a ski resort? You get all these problems. But we're keeping our eye on the ball. The point is, we have a limited staff thing. So we are going aggressively after the funding to research this have a boundary expansion study. It hasn't been commissioned yet. We've received $12,000 so far from CBT. We imagine it's going to cost between $40,000 and $50,000. We're negotiating with the Ministry of Community, Sport and Cultural Development, and they have shown a keen interest in this. Of course, it's something that's important to them. It's nice to have a project that isn't a minor one for municipalities saying we want to do our Bigfoot Trail or something, because sometimes you can get interest from the province in that. But this one really has to do with the province's commitment to double its revenue from tourism by, I think, 2020 or something like that. It's coming up right away. So they really are in the game, and it's a big enough project that it has things. So we're getting a good feedback. But when we do that study, we will let you guys know about it, and you'll be a part of the conversation.
So Marion tells me that if we limit this to 5 minutes per topic, we'll be back on time. The next topic selected for discussion is updating of the emergency plan.
I just want to make sure too, if the public are comfortable with how this is proceeding, or you're wishing that you're giving more time to ask questions, maybe we can consider that after we wrap everything up, if there's more questions wanted to be asked. If the rest of council would be open to that. Okay. So I see that the next one is emergency plan, and this is definitely a huge concern, I think, on everyone that lives in our community, near our community, with the railway that goes through, the highway with the tanker trucks, the pipeline, the forests all around us with beetle kill, even though our community forest is doing a great job in cleaning a lot of that up. But we do live in an area that has multiple opportunities for hazards to happen. And that's definitely a big thing on my mind and on our whole emergency planning committee as well. So the Village of Valemount Emergency Measures Bylaw 428/1996 is obviously out of date. And this is very problematic, as Section 6 of the British Columbia Emergency Programs Act states that a municipality is at all times responsible for the direction and control of emergency responses, must establish and maintain an emergency management organization or committee, which we have done, and must prepare or cause to be prepared local emergency plans respecting preparation for, response to, and recovery from emergencies and disasters. Building on this, the Village of Valemount does not have a designated emergency coordinator or an emergency planning committee to oversee the development and maintenance of the emergency plan. We are correcting that and have corrected that. Council have appointed emergency coordinators. Braden Hutchins, our Deputy Corporate Officer, and Barbie Bruce, a local citizen, have been appointed, and I wish to thank them already for all the hard work that they have been doing already behind the scenes before our first committee meeting. Council created the Emergency Planning Committee, which involves first responders within our community from the RCMP, the Fire Department, Northern Health, the School Board, Robson Valley Fire Zone, the Regional District, CN, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Lakes District Management. And they've all confirmed they'd participate on this committee, and they did. We had our first meeting yesterday. We had a room full of 15. And I was very impressed. Michael from Emergency Management BC, thank you. He also attended our meeting, and he also said, what a great turnout. That is a very positive step in direction that we are going, to have that much response from our local responders that are wanting to and willing to step forward and help us with this. So this just goes to show the dedication that we all have to make sure that our community is safe from future events. D. I don't know. Do I have to answer?
Now that I have a responsibility for the Valemount senior citizens housing, I am very concerned about, and our board is very concerned about what happens, particularly with a railway disaster at that point, because we were just thinking, how do we get people out of there? And where do we go? So that's just my concern, or I should say, our concern. Thanks.
I understand our Chief Administrative Officer advised me that Michael Higgins from Emergency Management BC did meet with our administrator at the Golden Years Lodge, Bobby Rowe. So, and I know that was also raised at our meeting yesterday, concerns about the seniors housing as well. So we are well aware of that, and we'll be on the radar, absolutely.
In light of what happened in Quebec this year, that wasn't even high-speed track. And all it takes is a mishap. We have 2 level crossings in the community and trains going at extreme rates of speed, carrying dangerous commodities. And I would ask that council act as advocates for the community by lobbying to our MP, to the Transportation Safety Board, and to Transport Canada, the Minister of Transportation, to at least put on a slow order until their inquiries about train accidents is concluded. Thank you.
Do you want to answer? You can go ahead.
I don't mind taking a crack at that. I think that's a great idea. But obviously, I'm one of council, but it sounds like that's appropriate. One notable is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities recently was able to get out of CN for every municipality a list of all the dangerous goods that are going through their communities. It seems so minimal, and it's extraordinary that CN does their work, and who they're in some respects, their cleanup crew is a local volunteer fire department. Like, how is that? And to date, we haven't even had the list of materials that we're on. I myself responded way back in the day to a burning sulfur car, and it was good that the captain and fire chief at the time responding totally had a knowledge of burning sulfur, even though, I mean, we didn't have a list and I didn't say, expect this. But that gas from that is toxic. It's extraordinary. And I mean, the other piece too is I think as we have to realize, not to change the subject, Trans Mountain pipelines, also, who is the first response crew? It's the local volunteer fire department. And I don't know what the compensation looks like for that, but I find that extraordinary that we ask, among everything else, like for them to dash into burning homes, is suddenly we also take care of cleanups.
Hi, Kelly Hall. I'm just wondering, do you have any cold weather shelters set up for the winter in case of any power outages or anything? Where do we go?
That is something that the Emergency Planning Committee also raised yesterday and is something that we'll be looking into and making sure that we have in place in that plan. I mean, right now, essentially, it'd be places like the community hall. We're looking at other options and alternatives if we don't have enough room here, working with the school board and the high school, but it's definitely on our radar as well for the plan.
One of the pieces about that is there's a lot there, and I'm glad that the emergency group, the emergency planning group, is taking a good look at it. Oh my God, I should have wrote it down. One of the pieces, Michael Higgins came to council there, the last council meeting, gave a great presentation. And one of the pieces that we can't lose sight of is that for a lot of this, it sounds like a cop-out, but we need to be resilient as a community. If you have a neighbor who has a wood-burning fireplace or a wood appliance, get to know them, seriously. I heat with a pellet stove, but I have a battery backup thing that it's ridiculous, but I have to run my car to make it work. But at any rate, it's through. But one of the things is we need to take care of ourselves. It's a really important component. I'll tell you, one of the things is, we think we can have backup generation and then escape the thing, but we all know what happened in Quebec with the ice storm. And as far as I'm concerned, an ice storm is just an incredible, I don't know what we would do. So we're working with our people. We have some great people who've been through this, and hopefully we can come up with some good solutions. But one thing that you can't lose sight of is that we need to be personally responsible. Yeah.
Marie?
Marie Birkbeck, 1433 6th Ave. On that count, I would just like to see a show of hands as who's got a backup power source or heat source in their home, because I certainly haven't. Thank you.
So your neighbor with the hand up, that's your friend. Introduce yourself.
Paul?
Paul Fretz, Tijon. My only concern is communication. If the power goes out in Tijon, the radios go down, there's no TV unless you've got satellite. So I don't know if I should evacuate or not. That's my most important concern.
Do you have a car, Paul?
A car?
Yes?
Yes, but the radios don't work.
One thing, this doesn't apply to you perfectly, Paul, but it is good for anybody else who's living in the regional district just beyond, or even in Valemount who doesn't have access. Valemount Community Television also the Valemount Entertainment Society, which is responsible for VCTV, runs 3 radio stations here. So they're responsible for Kissin FM. Anyways, 104.1 is the one that we turn to emergency radio things. So you can tune your car stereo to 104.1. It's unfortunate that right after 2003, we had that thing up and running, or in response to that. I think it was it took 2 years to figure out what we would do. But there is a generator up there that will provide backup power to that radio station for people in town. And you get so far away, and I can see it happening, that it gets lax and it gets lax. But at least we can say this, is that people were thinking about what the opportunities were there, and that is something that's there. I think it might have to go around word of mouth from everybody to say, what channel was it on? When the power goes out. But remember that there is, and just get your radio to scan, I guess, scan the FM band. 104.1 FM.
Michael Lewis again, quick suggestion. Crazy thing they had in the city of Victoria, which is exceptionally large, should be accomplished here pretty easy, is a list of all the things you might want in an emergency, like a tsunami kit. So I'm new to Canada, but I kind of figure I could have a list of stuff to make me suitable to survive.
Michael?
Is it on the Emergency Management BC website, Michael, the 72 hours preparedness kit?
Yes, it is, and the stockpile of groceries that I brought with me. Is the same.
There you go, Michael. Whew, thank you, Michael. Sylvia?
Sylvia Django, 1020 Main Street. Just a quick thing about the train accidents or so. I don't think it's maybe that important, but we have the greatest view. We're right in the middle of both crossings with the bakery. I'm watching several locals. The lights are flashing. They are still crossing. The train is whistling like hell, pardon my French, and you're still crossing. And maybe you can avoid one day a bad accident that way too. Just be careful. The lights are on for a reason.
Yeah.
That train cannot stop.
Thank you, Sylvia. Is that it? I guess they're cutting me off.
On? Yeah, on. Thank you, everybody. And now we're moving on to our bylaw enforcement strategy.
Okay, so as you know, we don't have a bylaw officer at this time. Not for lack of trying, we tried twice. There's two challenges that small municipalities face, and that's the cost of hiring the bylaw officer and the cost associated with initiating formal court proceedings if a person does not voluntarily pay a ticket that has been issued. The first year, Lori kept sending stuff across our desk, and I couldn't believe how much it cost to send someone to court. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to do some bylaw education. For one thing, the village is seeking bylaw compliance through bylaw awareness and education. The village writes awareness letters to citizens if they are suspected that a bylaw infraction might be occurring. Remember that we're complaint driven, so keep that in mind. It's all really great to complain to me in the grocery store or to your neighbor or at work, but remember it's complaint driven. You've got to phone the village and have them log it, okay? The bylaw enforcement and adjudication system, the provincial government recently passed the Local Government Bylaw Notice Enforcement Act. This act allows local governments to establish a bylaw adjudication system instead of the formal provincial court system, and creates a simple, fair, and cost-effective way of dealing with minor bylaw infractions. In 2013, the village passed the Bylaw Notice Enforcement and Dispute Adjudication System bylaw, which gives staff the authority to develop the bylaw enforcement and adjudication system. What? Do I have to shut up? Too bad. This bylaw sets out fines, early payment discounts, and late penalties regarding minor bylaw infractions. It also sets out a dispute process in order to promote voluntary compliance for a reduced penalty. And like it's been discussed, we've been going over policies and bylaws, renewing everything, bringing things up to date. So if you have an issue, let us know. We can't fix it if we don't know what it is. Okay? Complaints?
This is not the place. Go to the village office.
Well, that was great because that gets us almost back on time. The last strategy that you selected to talk about in detail is the infrastructure replacement strategy.
Yeah. This is kind of huge, unfortunately. I just want to remind everybody what our infrastructure includes: the airport, roads, sewer lines, lift station and treatment plant, water lines, intake and pumps. Our buildings are the village office, the community hall, the community service building, the courthouse, public works buildings, libraries, museum, etc. The cemetery, parks, and vehicles and equipment. So we were legislated, I don't know how long ago, to start a tangible capital assets fund to plan for the replacement of the buildings in the future. So right now, staff is developing an overall strategy that incorporates the maintenance cost, predicts and plans for future capital expenses, and provides direction for the management of the tangible capital assets. So right now the village has created a cost, depreciation, and life cycle schedule for all the items that fall into the TCA. The lifestyle and replacement schedule has been graphed to create the initial look at when significant capital expenditures are going to be required, and the incorporation of maintenance cost and large maintenance jobs is next. So the proper evaluation and estimation of real replacement cost in today's future dollars is also required. Again, this is dynamic and it'll go on forever and ever and ever. Keeping it brief because I would really like to hear any comments from you guys.
Owen Torgerson, 911 Elm Street. All these costs being allocated, how is the grants in lieu by BC Hydro being allocated?
Can I direct it? Yeah, go ahead.
That's a real mystery. Hydro apparently has a, do you know? Yeah. You're the one guy in the room I thought would know. No, because yeah, they don't know themselves. No, that's right. And that's kind of interesting. So is your point that we should be lobbying BC Hydro to increase? Yeah.
Well, you should be lobbying your local MLA who actually sits on that committee.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So basically, yeah, that's a good point. I don't think we've taken that tact in particular. So we should talk about payments in lieu of taxes. So because the reservoir infrastructure is close to us, we do get payment from BC Hydro. So we should make sure that that payment is increasing along with the cost of what we do as well.
Both lifestyle and increased cost of living.
Yeah. That's a good point. We'll jot that down. Does anybody want to hear about, oh no, we already mentioned the upstream water intake.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
It's their turn now. Yes.
Sorry, Paul Fretz again, Tijan. Is there a point where, if we don't increase our population, where some of this infrastructure may not be viable? Mm-hmm. If our tax base doesn't increase, we're not able to fund some of these things. Thanks.
Yeah. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, I think one of the things, I saw an interview on Global from 1993. Trevor Pelche brought it up, and it was 3 community members who were speaking about the hopes and dreams for Valemount. And they were talking about how things were on the upswing and the community was growing and the forest industry was doing well, but they were hedging their bets. But the idea was planning for a Valemount that grows. And I think council's been very practical in the sense that we want to be really realistic. Also, one of the pieces that is tempting to think about is that you have, if we're able to get a gondola super glacier destination thing, is that our population will drastically increase and our problems will be of yore. That hasn't been the case in other communities. We've taken a look at communities that have developed, gone from minute ski hills to giant ones. That's not the case. It doesn't increase. So we know that whatever the case is, it's not that we don't plan for increasing beyond that, but the point is we are very realistic about the number of people that we are planning for. And that's a real key piece. I don't want to get controversial, but when we look at building new buildings, especially ones that the village owns, the idea is centralize, make efficient. But, and that plays out how it plays out. It's everything within reason. We don't go around and bulldoze buildings all the time, but it's something I think we keep an eye to.
Questions or comments on that topic?
Is it on? Yes. So we're about 5 minutes behind schedule. That leaves us 10 minutes for the open forum piece. So this is your opportunity to bring up something that hasn't fallen into any of the former categories. If you have a comment, a question, a concern to council, and we ask that you keep it to 1 minute as well, just like the previous ones.
Wine all the time.
Here.
You guys are talking about growing dope and shit. I want to know what all this hype is about, or what you guys are, what direction you're going. Like, what is all this about?
Yeah. Okay. So right now it's right now until April, it's legal to grow for people who have a permit. We don't know who those people are. Like seriously, nobody consulted with the village about who they are, how they get their permit or whatever. But we know that there are several operations in Valemount where they're growing medical marijuana. We didn't sign up for that. It just became legal federally. One of the things I just want to say, one of the things as a council that we've seen as a result of this conversation, a conversation about medical marijuana, is that those people who are doing that, their neighbors are really struggling with it, at least in some cases. And as a municipality, when now the federal government is saying we're going to allow commercial things, as a community we're saying, okay, we have to make sure that we don't get a big one of these right in a residential neighborhood, because it has a direct impact on the neighbors, and we have the letters to prove it. We have the experience, we've been through that. It's not that we're the reason the zoning change. I could actually get staff to respond to this pretty well.
Talk about it.
Oh.
As of April 1st, the federal government is only going to be issuing licenses to grow medicinal marijuana to commercial growers. They've only issued 2 licenses in Canada to today's date, and they're kicking it back to municipalities to say, you have the option to set aside land, be it industrial, light industrial, rural residential, or residential if you choose, to have those commercial operations located. So we're asking you, the public, if that's something you're even willing to have in your community, would be a commercially operated medicinal marijuana grow up, so to speak. Because right now we have no industrial land slated. This is opening a bigger can of worms for us to say, okay, if we do let this go, where are we going to put it? That's not to say there's anybody knocking down our door saying, okay, I have a commercial license, I want to grow marijuana in your community. We're just asking you if that's something that you would even be willing to tolerate here and not have it in the commercial, or not having it in residential areas anymore. Make more sense? Okay. Pardon?
I'm opposed to it all.
Okay, we'll put it on there.
What do you think, Si? Yeah. Yeah. Put your 5 cents there. Yeah.
I'm not going to introduce myself again. Why don't you ask for a show of hands about everybody who is adamantly opposed?
I'm not sure that that's a fair thing. I don't think that's a fair thing. Okay. But if you are adamantly opposed, you can go and write it on in your own good time. I don't think, I would like not to divide the community that way in this process. But point taken.
I don't know whether, I don't get a sense about whether people want it.
Well, there's a lot of ticks under the S there.
Yeah, but they're all kind of fuzzy and squiggly.
We don't want to cut into anyone's time who actually wants to have an opportunity to comment here. But if no one else has any other comments, we'll try to get through as many of the written ones as we can. So if you have a verbal comment you want to make, let us, oh, there we've got one, Silvio.
Alan Rial, 1144 7th. Just a couple of observations about tonight. First of all, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, but a lot of the things that were discussed here seem very circular and contradictory to something else. And about the clean air, talking about reducing the amount of wood stoves are going to be used, and yet in an emergency plan we're told to use the wood stoves. Just an observation. Nothing was discussed about business development of any kind throughout tonight's meeting, and that was actually a big disappointment for me. I know we have a few businesses coming in town, but I still have yet to hear any incentives for businesses to come here, which is a point I brought up last year. So that's all.
It's our mission here to hear and not debate, and we hear you. We don't get to do a lot of real things, so I am going to just say a couple real things that we're doing. One is we're devoting a lot of time to Valemount Glacier Destinations, which is a significant economic development project, and my entire time, my free time as mayor has been devoted to geothermal, which I think has a direct impact on our economy. And I think when we're talking about getting Valemount industrial jobs, to me, that seems the way. So if there's something that a particular strategy that we're missing, we can go that way. And let's not forget the small town love piece, I think, is absolutely critical because it deals in what we have. It doesn't offer false promises or fake hope. It's not a scheme. It's not an incentive where you reduce the cost of business for somebody that doesn't have a viable business. It's about businesses who are here slinging it, in the trenches. And I think that we've developed this little program, or the Northern Development Initiative Trust has, but it's our people, our staff who are going out and making sure that it gets done. And I think that's, it's rare that you get to do stuff that makes a difference.
Have you gone to the chamber with this? Just something, food for thought? Might be something they might be interested in or discuss or make a plan or. Yep. Okay.
I got it noted. Okay.
I'm going to read through the comments that we get. One is on the they're under the emergency plan. There's a comment about, I think it was voiced tonight, about what's our cold weather shelter and what do we do in a long-term power outage. And with solid waste, they're interested in what are we going to do about recycling. They're asking for a human resources strategy, which is about what we're doing at jobs at the village office, but I think they've turned it into the right thing, which is what are we doing about jobs? The geothermal piece, the question is when? When does that happen? And there's a one just asking for some clarification on the marijuana piece. There's another one about bylaw enforcement strategy, and the question is, what about pot bylaws? What about grow-ops? There's a question about balanced economic development, diversified economic development, including light industrial. So the question is, what is the village doing for those things? There's comment about what is the village doing for affordable housing for new residents and young families. There's a question about the emergency plan. What is the plan? There's one about another one about emergency plan is pointing out the four big things here: rail, highway, pipeline, and fire. What are we going to do? OCP and zoning bylaw updates. There's a concern here that there's too much commercially zoned property for the size of the town. And probably I bet you that person is thinking, how do we get that density that creates a town where you walk from store to store and you have a center, and when you go to a place, everybody's in one thing. They have a chance of seeing somebody at 6 o'clock at night. The wildfire protection plan is an expletive. Wildfire protection plan is just, I think, adding to the import that it's important that we deal with that. There's a comment around under the integrated community sustainability plan saying let's increase the tax base and employment. And plans for VGD impacts and opportunities, and it's a maybe with a question mark. So maybe the comment there is like, let's not pin our hopes on it. I hate to, but anyways, maybe with a question mark is what's there. The update emergency plan, the comment here is it's of the utmost importance. What do we do in case of a real emergency? Plan for VGD impacts, there's a note here. Too many houses, too many homes.
Too many homes.
Too many hours. Too many hours went into the ICSP to allow it to fall into the archives and go unnoticed. Yeah. One, explore geothermal opportunities. So the person is saying going green while being able to, I think there's emphasis on going green and using CBT wisely to sort of make those opportunities happen. And there's a question around VGD are we planning on expanding the boundaries? Update the emergency plan. The thing is, does the current plan go far enough? And is there benchmarking with other communities, I think? Benchmarking is what they've said here. So it might be interesting to take a look at what other communities that have successfully navigated some of those big things and look at what they do, which is what Michael Higgins' specialty. So we're glad he's on our team. That wraps up the comment sheets.
The screen says it's now 8:55 and it's actually now 9 o'clock, but we're actually only 5 minutes over. And it's your choice. Did you want to wrap up the meeting, or do you want further opportunity to provide comments? So let's have a show of hands for wrapping it up. And a show of hands for further comments. Okay, that's pretty clear. Thank you all for making the time to come. I'm going to ask council if they want to provide any closing remarks.
Get this stuff out. I have a question. Can I? Oh, hey. I have a question for you guys. You know, tonight you had the salmon color thing, and then you had the blue sheet, and then you said what you want to talk about. Would it help if we had that out to you a week in advance?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll just make staff do that. Don't worry. It'll be fine.
Survey what?
Survey Monkey.
Survey Monkey. Register the comments, drop dead time. It's an automatic timer on the interwebs, which is the official internet. And
Who has access to who does not have access to the internet?
You can always come to the library.
Thank you, everyone. Please remember to fill out your evaluation forms. We value those. And good night.